Hello, my name is Fabian Parrish,
Hi, my name is Jaiden Music.
and we have the honor to sit with New Mexico State Supreme Justice today, Justice Shannon Bacon. If you aren't familiar with who she is, then it's a good thing you're watching this because you're going to learn a lot. Justices, thank you, and thank you so much for being here. Now, the first question. When you were 18 years old, did you ever imagine becoming a Supreme Court justice?
No, not at all. At 18, I was trying to, figure out what my major was going to be and whether I got along with my roommate, much less figuring out, looking all these years forward to being on the New Mexico Supreme Court.
Interesting.
So what was the first career you were seeking, or did this become your first path that you came on?
No. So when I was finished with college, I knew I was going to head to law school and be a lawyer. And so I practiced law for about 13 years. And then after that, I became a trial court judge, what we call a district court judge here in New Mexico. And I was in Albuquerque doing that. And I served in that role for almost a decade. And then last year was appointed to the New Mexico Supreme Court by Governor Lujan Grisham. So being on the Supreme Court was not part of my thought process all those years ago.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Creighton University, which is in Omaha, Nebraska. But I was born and raised here in Albuquerque.
Okay, so you're a native. Awesome. That's awesome.
I am.
What was your main goal when you joined the Supreme Court? What was the main motive you wanted to change?
That's a good question. As a trial court judge, I could watch what the Supreme Court did and knew how the decisions of the highest court in the state impacted the work I was doing. And I thought I had something to lend to that, having been a district court judge for 10 years. One of my big passions is what we call access to justice, meaning that everyone who needs a lawyer and needs to come to court should have the ability to do that and not have to do it on their own. And, most people in New Mexico can't afford a lawyer. And so that kind of work is my passion. And I thought as a Supreme Court justice, I could bring more of that to light with the work that I do there.
All right, I like that answer. Thank you. I guess Justice Thomson has arrived. How are you doing?
Hi, Jaiden. I apologize I'm late. I was with my little one out in Pecos, so apologize for the delay.
Oh, no worries. So let's just ask you the same question we just asked Justice Bacon. So we're going to ask a question, and we'll give you both an opportunity to answer. Does that sound good for you?
Sounds good. Whatever works.
All right. So
when you were 18 years old, did you ever imagine becoming a Supreme Court justice?
I would like to tell you yes, but I would not be telling you the truth.
So before you became you joined the Supreme Court, what did you want to pursue?
Probably at 18, if I could remember what it was like at 18, which was quite a while ago. I do remember wanting to try something new and get out of New Mexico for a little bit, and went to college out of state. And I eventually learned to, as Justice Bacon did, we both returned, understanding, what our state has to offer. And it was a nice break. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I experienced something different. I think it was good for me overall, but it's good to be back. What did I think I was going to do? I was interested in public service, I would probably say. If I knew something generally, I knew that. I knew I was going to go in, study government in undergrad, learn about public service, and then I went on to work for Senator Bingaman right out of college. That was probably the extent of what I thought I would do. We both did it eventually. It was a different path, but we ended there.
Awesome. So what was your main goal when you joined the Supreme Court? What was your big motive to change?
The big motive to change was, the two sides, and maybe Justice Bacon has talked about this, the two things we do. One is very substantive matters, we're the last word. There's very large and complicated legal matters we have to deal with. And the other is just the operation of the courts, including not only sort of the boring technical operation, but things like improving access to justice for pro se litigants, or improving the way in which technology improves a litigant's experience to the courts. It was both those things. In essence, it was to elevate the role of the judiciary in our democratic process. I think everybody focuses on the executive naturally and the legislative, and I understand that. We always wonder, Just Bacon and I give tours all the time, and we always tell them, you guys walk down to the legislature, they're giving tours, they're at the roundhouse, there are pages on the floor. No one comes to the Supreme Court building. But it's a crucial part of our democratic system. And actually, if you pay attention to it, it's quite interesting. So that was the goal.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys got a lot of interesting work in the courthouse. But I want to know, what is some of the boring work you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis?
Some of the boring work.
Yeah.
Well, these days we spend an awful lot of time on Zoom. And we're in meetings constantly, and some of those meetings are really, really interesting and engaging, and some can be a little mundane, like how are we going to get hand sanitizer to the courts in Carlsbad? Not the most exciting work for a Supreme Court justice to do, but frankly, it's still critical because it's the only way we can keep those courthouses open, is to have, the PPE and all of those safety precautions in place. But I would say that's a little bit more on the mundane side.
Well,
we're very rule driven. It's important to have rules. It's important to follow the rules, and everybody feels that things don't change depending on the case. So we spend a lot of time reviewing rules, and that I can say can get a little tedious.
All right, awesome. So do you go to the courthouse at all, or is everything online now during the pandemic?
Go ahead, Justice Thomson.
I live in Santa Fe, so it's a little easier. I go in quite a bit. Justice Bacon comes up quite a bit, although it's much harder for her, I think, with the commute. But for us, it's an isolating job anyway, absent COVID, right? We're just sort of in there, working and reading. So I think it's really tough on our trial courts, and they've done a good job. Or the magistrate courts, the courts most people are familiar with and interacting. And we've kept them open since COVID happened, or we've done our best. And, that's a lot of pressure on those folks and those staff that really have some legitimate concerns about their safety. Justice Bacon?
And I'd say we're probably at about half staff at the Supreme Court building. Most days there's 3 justices there, and there's 5 justices on the New Mexico Supreme Court. So most days there's 3 of us there. And about half of our law clerks, which are generally new lawyers who work for each of our chambers. And I think the biggest change for us is oral argument is now virtual. So the lawyers who are presenting argument to us are on Zoom or on Google Meets. And and most of us are in the courtroom, although we have one justice who's always on video now, which is a brand new process for us. But because oral argument is a back and forth like we're having now, it lends itself to that. It's a lot harder for the trial court judges who are having trials and swearing in witnesses and have 20 cases on a docket during the day, and them having to navigate the online world.
Okay, so besides each other and the other justices, who do you interact with most in your job?
I interact with Justice Thomson quite a bit. We're both the newest members of the court, and that bonds you together in a way. We're also campaigning.
New kids on the block.
Yes, exactly. And we're campaigning together. It helps that we've been friends for a long time, so it makes that a little bit easier. But I'd say we interact the most with each other, the justices, and then our law clerks. We each have 2 clerks who are lawyers who help us with research and writing, and we interact with them, although a lot of it is virtual these days.
Well, there's like a whole bunch of kids, 18 to 20, and they're lost, and they really don't know what to do. What advice could you give to anybody that's looking to be a judge or looking to be in that power?
Wow, well, first you got to go to law school. We'll start there.
Yeah.
And, law school isn't for everyone, but there's also not one single path to law school. There are folks in law school who kind of have the traditional political science background or philosophy or history, but there's also lots of people in law school who got degrees in fine art or degrees in biology, or maybe were a personal trainer before they decided to go back to school. So there's a whole myriad of paths to law school. And then I'd say for the folks who are in law school, there's kind of the individuals who really relish all of the advocacy and that adversarial process. And then there's folks who like that, but they also like to think about the law and read about the law. And if you're in that second group, you're more likely to like being a judge, because we're the neutral person in the fight. And it's our job to make sure we do our best to apply the law the right way and give a fair shake to the parties that are in front of us.
Yeah, I would, my advice would be, take it easy on yourself. I think have a sense, the question isn't, how do I want to go to law school? Do I want to be a lawyer? But why, right? Mm-hmm. And if the question is why, because I want public service, I have empathy, I like to serve other people, you're going to find your way there if you have a core understanding of what you do. Don't be so, and I was the most guilty of this of anybody. It worked out for me. But I had a goal in which, okay, I'm going to work for Senator Bingham, and I'm going to go law school, And you know what? Really, what it turns on is what you want to do that makes you fulfilled as a person. And Justice Bacon's right. Law is a wonderful way to do it because it's a very flexible means to get anywhere. But don't be too stressed about clicking every box and following every step.
Yeah, because you almost never know where you're going to go. Like 10 years or even 2 years from now, it's so unpredictable. So what did you 2 major in when you guys went to law school?
Go ahead, Justice Thomson.
So in college, I majored in economics and government. And then law school, I thought perhaps I would go into sort of the law enforcement realm. So I did a lot of criminal law, and it ended up, I did some of it, but really not that much. The majority of my career has been in the civil practice. So there you go. Right. I thought not because it wasn't uninteresting. It was very interesting. It's one of the more interesting aspects. It's not where my path ended up.
And I was a history major with minors in Spanish and urbanization. Who knows how I ended up there. And in law school, you take a wide variety of classes in law school, whether it's on the criminal side or the civil side. But I took lots of classes related to constitutional law and also related to gaming law, because Indian gaming was a brand new field when we were in law school. And I went to a law school that had one of 2 law schools in the country that had a focus on Indian gaming, and I knew I was going to come back home at that point. So that was another interesting area that I've used some, but not exclusively in practice.
Great, great. So, who are some of your favorite political philosophers, like John Locke, any of them?
I see that we're both like rolling our eyes, trying to think, who would that be?
I have, it's an interesting question. Is it a philosopher? Based on what is so crazy, given our business, I often probably reference what is on top of my head. But to do that, let me reference 2 people. One, I'm reading a biography on John Adams. And it is the biography, much of it obviously discusses the founding of our nation, and it's wonderful parallels in some ways to what we're going through. I was reading last night that they tore, after they announced Declaration of Independence and they voted on it, they went and tore down a statue to George III. It's funny, and we go to modern times and people are in the ways they're communicating about their government. They're doing some of the very similar things. I thought that is really interesting. I've started to like, I don't want to say, I'll probably not a philosopher, but I've enjoyed his reading of George Orwell. Was very
1984.
Yeah, and he was his political views I may not necessarily agree with, but his writing is very good. I very much enjoyed that. So that's kind of what is most present on my mind. Just speaking.
Well, I'd say, the very beginnings to me of political philosophy come from Plato, but it's not terribly applicable these days, but it's certainly interesting. And in studying history in college, I largely focused on medieval history. And so Thomas Aquinas is a big feature in medieval political philosophy. I don't think there's too many true political philosophers in the modern era that we think of. We more think of really strong political leaders as opposed to philosophers. And so there's, interplay between the two. I think to be a really strong political leader, kind of at the national level in the modern era, you also have to have a bit of political philosopher to you. And what I've been reading a lot about lately is World War II. And so it makes me think of Churchill and FDR.
Great. Yeah, I like those answers. History does repeat itself. I'll pass the mic on to Fabien. Just like to ask a question.
Well, other than politics and doing your job, what kind of hobbies or activities do you do just throughout your week?
That's a fun question. So I got up at 5:30 this morning and went ballooning. My family has been flying hot air balloons as long as I can remember. My dad's a pilot, my brother's a pilot, and because of COVID, I haven't been in a really long time. So that was really fun. And generally anything that takes me outdoors, whether it's hiking or riding my bike, gardening, things like that. Anything in the outdoors is what generally makes me pretty happy.
Awesome.
And it is, it's a crucial thing, I think. If you always want to maintain, you can call them hobbies, diversions, whatever. It's really critical you maintain, that aspect, that balance in your life. I tried for the first time today. I'd never been fly fishing, so I was running a little late because I was coming back from Pecos. So unfortunately, the smoke was pretty bad. But I can now understand the charm of that. It's very tranquil. It's beautiful. My daughter and I had a lot of fun, and unfortunately, we wish there was more water.
Yeah.
But always have hobbies.
Yeah, it's very important.
New Mexico is beautiful. Where are some of your favorite places to visit?
In New Mexico or in the world?
Yeah, in New Mexico specifically.
In New Mexico. Well, Justice Thomson just mentioned the Pecos, and that's one of the, I think, the prettiest places in New Mexico. I was up there for a few days earlier this summer. I think the Chama is also really, really beautiful. For me, it's anywhere where there's green and mountains that I'm drawn to.
Yeah, we're lucky, people are amazed when you, especially if they don't know about New Mexico, and you can tell them, you're 30 minutes from a ski area or from mountains to climb in. You can drive down to, Carlsbad Caverns. I mean, the amount of diversity and that's why, quite frankly, I think what has evolved is sort of a economics of tourism, and this trail that they're building, this outdoor, I don't know what the exact term of it is, but interstate trail is a great idea, because the diversity in New Mexico with regard to that is wonderful.
Yeah.
Where are you guys from originally? Where'd you guys grow up in New Mexico?
I grew up in Albuquerque.
Awesome.
I was born and raised in Santa Fe. This was my life.
Santa Fe.
We returned. We tell people what percentage, Just Bacon always has a number.
2% of kids who leave for college come back. So we're 2%ers. We're part of that 2% who left for undergrad and graduate school, and then promptly came home because we really appreciate the beauty and the diversity of New Mexico, and it's great to come home and also be with family.
It is the land of enchantment.
It is.
So my stepdad always says start at the back of the ballot. How come that is? Why is that?
Well, that is great advice, and the reason is because we know it. We borrow it all the time. I mean, it's brilliant. It did not occur to me until this election. We always told people, don't forget the judges. They're down. A lot of them are down at the bottom. Justice Bacon and I are at the top. The idea is this: we know you're going to get to the Senate race with Ben Ray and the presidential race with Mr. Biden. We know you're going to vote those. If you start at the top and work back, we don't know whether you're going to carry the energy all the way down. So start at the bottom and carry it up, and that way we know you've covered the full ballot. The only thing I would add to that is not only do it, but educate yourself about it, especially the judges. That's the one thing we'd hit on. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a unique opportunity this year if you're doing absentee voting, is that you can sit down with your ballot and you can Google the candidates that you're being asked to vote for. And so you can see the differences between the points of view of the person running for your House seat or your Senate seat. And you can learn about the judges that are running, whether it's your magistrate court, district court, court of appeals, or the Supreme Court. You can actually be thoughtful instead of guessing. And so that's unique about this election cycle, that just the vast number of people voting by absentee gives you the opportunity to do that homework.
Yeah, I'd agree. The big problem is that people always focus on the bigger elections and don't focus on the ones that actually affect our community at the local level. Justice Bacon, you mentioned the different kinds of judges. Can you explain what each of the roles are and how they relate to you?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with the bottom and work up to where Justice Thomson and I are. So in New Mexico, you have municipal court judges and magistrate court judges, and they're those are the lowest level, not the least important, but just lowest in terms of hierarchy. And most people are familiar with magistrate courts or the Metropolitan Court here in Bernalillo County, because that's where you go if you get a speeding ticket. So they are kind of the people's court. Lots and lots of people and small non-felony offenses go there. Then on top of that, you have the district court, which is the main trial court level. So if you're like in a bad auto accident, or you have a real estate dispute, or you're charged with a felony, you're going to be at the district court level. And there are 13 district courts in the state of New Mexico, separated by district. So 13 judicial districts. And then any case that's decided there by way of a trial can be appealed one time as of right. And the one appeal, that automatic appeal, goes to what we call the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals is 10 judges that review just the record, the paper, and the transcript, all the words that were spoken during that proceeding. And they decide whether the trial court got it right or wrong. And then above that, the highest court in the state, where Justice Thomson and I work, is the New Mexico Supreme Court. And with a few exceptions, the cases that we take, we get to decide what we take. It's not automatic. So we decide if it's one of significant importance to the state, or if there are conflicting Court of Appeals opinions, or we can see that district courts are doing really disparate things. And so we'll review those petitions and decide which ones we take, and it's less than 10% of what is filed with us. And then a couple of notable exceptions to that rule are anything that goes through the PRC, the Public Regulation Commission, so having to do with utilities or your cell phone. Those cases come directly to us. They don't stop in any other court. And capital cases where somebody's charged with a felony that has a life sentence, those cases come straight to us for review. And then right now, the most active area of case that comes to the New Mexico Supreme Court are writs. Writs is when somebody down below says, hey, Supreme Court, we need you to take this issue now. We can't wait for the normal process to happen. And so one of the writs that came up recently was whether the Secretary of State could send out absentee ballots to everybody. Another writ that we recently heard was whether the governor can fine businesses that have refused to close in light of her public health orders. So issues like that come to us in an expedited way.
Yeah. Hopefully I won't have to ever go through that.
Yeah, it's a good thing if you avoid us.
No, I think Justice Bacon captured it exactly. I would encourage people, there's obviously a lot of, it's an understatement to say there's been a lot of hardship throughout this crisis with regard to the courts and other things. There are some positive aspects to it with regard to the courts, one of which is through this sort of technology, we've been able to stream some of our arguments that Justice Bacon mentioned. We'll continue to do it. I think it will give people broader exposure to what the courts do on a daily basis. And then, maybe to your earlier question, we won't have to force them to work from the back of the ballot up. They will have more information about what their courts do. So that is a positive, I think. And once this crisis is over, we'll continue to do it.
And if anybody watching is interested, this coming Wednesday at 1:30 p.m., we are having oral arguments about whether the governor can close restaurants or not. And that will be live streamed on KNME Channel 5's YouTube channel. So if anybody's interested, they can see us in action this coming Wednesday, which is pretty unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you both were in college for quite some time in order to get the knowledge and experience to be in this position. And most people say college is pretty hard. But what was your most fun experience in college?
Oh, there were so many things. At the beginning of college, I played soccer. I was a student athlete, and that was fun, and I made really good friends that way. Then I decided I better focus on academics. And so I stopped playing soccer so I could do that. You know, just learning so many different things and meeting so many different people, especially because I'd left New Mexico. That was a really broadening experience. And I think, you know, the more people you can meet that aren't like you, the better off you are, because it broadens how you think about the world and how you think about people.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that whole. I also played. I went to Division III, and I thought I was pretty good athlete. And then I went out east, and in Division III, I was over my skis immediately. It was very humbling, both academically and otherwise. It brought me out to an area I'd never been to. It was very strange and eye-opening and humbling in a lot of ways. And that's what I think I value. And as Justice Bacon said, it's the exposure to a different experience and different people that, looking back, it was really the most valuable and what I enjoyed the most about it, and I carried to this day.
Awesome. Well, so we need to shift gears for a moment and ask you a serious question on behalf of all New Mexicans. Red or green?
So I will do the Santa Fe thing, which will make everybody mad and say Christmas, because that's what everybody thinks is a Santa Fe deal.
Yeah.
You know, they always get so mad. You guys from Santa Fe always say that. And it also allows me to equivocate in a way that.
So I will be more direct. I went to Casa Benavides for breakfast this morning with my balloon crew, and it was red all day.
I would say if you force me, it would be red.
But they're both pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I'm Team Green personally.
All
See,
right.
that's why I equivocate. See what you did to me? I'm going to have to get back on the course.
Although I will say that I could smell green chili roasting this morning, and it was one of those very special New Mexico fall smells that made us all kind of perk up.
Amen.
Phenomenal smell. All righty. Well, we're going to wrap this up, but before we wrap this up, I would like to ask, is there any advice or anything you'd like to say to young voters?
Voting is one of the most powerful things you can do. Doesn't matter if you're 18 or you're 83. You can have a tremendous impact on little really important but small day-to-day things. And I think about the trial court judges. They're dealing with issues related to child custody, property, if somebody passes away, what happens to their estate, things that impact everybody's day-to-day life, employment issues, government benefits, things like that. And so by exercising your voice about who you think best represents your values and what you want your community to look like, the best, most universal way to express that is by making sure you vote. It doesn't matter if you're voting for school board or county commission or president of the United States.
I agree. And I would, the one thing I would say is, if you think at your stage in your life, your vote at 18 and 20 won't impact your life when you look like me, you're not understanding. Your vote now and your direction and how you view public service will inform your life for the rest of your life. And it's not something to put off as a lesser priority. Not only that, it's everything surrounding it. It's your understanding of the issues. It's your commitment to your community. It's everything you're interested in. and not just voting. You know, can you volunteer at the polls, or, you know, can you door knock? There's other ways to participate, not just voting. And I hope you do early and safely.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank
This
you so
phone call has been a
much.
blast.
This was great, guys. You asked terrific questions. So it was really fun.
Yes, thank you for your responses.
You're making me blush. Thank you again. You guys have a beautiful day.
You too.
You
Thank
too.
you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.